Hello viewers, I'm Ray Massey and I'm here with the Managing Director of Strategic Architects, Nigel Schmalkuche.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
This year I was lucky enough to hear you present on this topic in Sydney at the As a Service Summit when you were the Manager of ICT Architecture, Strategy and Planning in the Queensland Government.
Yeah, and that was a really good conference, and I was lucky enough to get some feedback from right across Australia at all levels of government.
That's great. I gather that would be an important activity for an enterprise architect working on cloud implementations.
Yeah, it is an important activity, and a cloud adoption framework is an important activity to have a well-designed, staged approach in moving to the cloud. So with a cloud adoption framework, you have 7 high-level stages, and they include strategy, plan, architect, implement, operate, maintain, and improve. Mm-hmm. So if I look at those stages in more detail, the cloud strategy needs to be worked on first, and the strategy has the vision, the purpose, the direction. It has principles. It includes things like the current achievements, the future activities, and it can include the maturity model, where you're going to go in the future.
Right. So
that strategy needs to get agreed to by the senior management and across as the first one. Mm-hmm. The second stage, and it's also very important, is the planning stage. So the planning stage includes plan of activities which you can put on a roadmap, for instance, mm-hmm. and look at those the roadmap and the activities, and then line up the benefits and the outcomes and the measures that you get from that.
Right.
The planning stage also includes that business case, and the business case is really important because that business case will look at the costs and look at the benefits and see if it maps up to be a useful activity, which it needs to be these days.
Right.
So the planning stage also includes the people, and looking at the people, you need to have a good understanding. Do the other people on board? Have they got the communications? Have they got the skills and the capabilities to move to a model from a traditional model to a cloud as a service model?
Gotcha.
Organisation change and communications, they quite often have a big role to play in that to get the right message out across the organisation. So after the people stage, you have the governing stage, and if you're looking at the governance, you need to establish the roles and responsibilities, the policies, the procedure. Mm-hmm. With that roles and responsibilities, you need to know which person is doing each activities, which area has those as their task to perform, because then it's more likely to go successful in the long run.
Right.
After doing that planning, we go into the architecture stage, and this is my sort of area because I'm an enterprise architect. And with the architecture stage, we look at more of the readiness stage, which is the business, information, application, technology, and security architecture, those sort of things. Is the organisation ready to go to the cloud? Mm-hmm. And so that's that part of the readiness that you're doing. And the maturity can be looked at as well and updated from the cloud strategy. After that, once we go within the architect, you've got the design. So that's where you've got to put together the design patterns. And what I mean by patterns is it develops a design procedure that can be used multiple times. Mm-hmm. So other things can be security architecture, looking at what's going to be the security controls that are needed, mm-hmm. encryption, at rest and in transit. Some of those architecture requirements have got to be put in place first.
Right.
Yeah. So the decision stage is also important under the architecture area, and what I've found really useful in organisations is to have a cloud migration tool. The cloud migration tool is able to look at, what is the current portfolio, the application inventory portfolio look like, and how is that going to be planned out in the future going to the cloud? What are the business critical applications that might be left once we've got things organised? What are some of the events that we need to avoid, and those sort of things. So the cloud migration part is one of the essential parts, and one of the essential parts for the enterprise architect, because the enterprise architecture can really make a difference. So once you've finished that architecture stage, the next stage is the implement, and quite often some of the solution architects are in that stage. So with the implement, you have the standard build, test, and looking at how those modules can go forward. So say if you had certain applications, you'd want to test them thoroughly to a test plan, for instance, and make sure that they are able to go forward into the implement stage. After that, you need to be able to execute, and the execute would be actually moving those across. And once you've done the execute, we move into the operational part. With the operational part, quite often there's a handover from, say, the solution architect team, say if they're contractors or whatever, straight over to the operational staff that are going to have to be running the cloud in the future. However, it's better if you have those operational staff working with the implementation team, so they can get the skills. They can have that 3-month period where they're understanding, and the skills transfer across from the solution architect to the operational team. So once you get in the operate area, you're orchestrating the cloud augmentation. You're working within thresholds that have been set, and you're actually operating in the cloud. You're starting to work on monitoring. So say if you've got external vendors in place, you need to be able to monitor and have those key statistics coming up. And once you jump into that maintain stage, after that operate, you really need to get that bedded down, because you need to have that monitoring in place. You need to talk to the vendors, have the vendor relationship really, really tight, so that you know that they're hitting the SLA targets for, say, performance, availability, reliability, and the costing that's included as well.
Right.
So once you've got that maintain stage in place, an additional stage that I've added is the improve stage and the enhance, because it's an iterative process. You want it to be able to look at the lessons learnt that you've got from the cloud adoption. You want to be able to implement updates to staff, keep sure that they're aware of what's happening. Anything that went wrong during the adoption framework, it needs to be updated, and that sort of keeps that iterative stage going through.
Right.
And I'll just tell you a story about an example. I developed the cloud strategy stage, and I walked down to the implementation people, and I said, how's it going with the implementation? And they said, you did a cloud strategy, it's cloud first, so we're implementing into the cloud. Right. And I said, yeah, but how are you implementing into the cloud? And they said, we're just moving stuff into the cloud. And that's where the adoption framework comes. You really need to have those 7 stages. And it's really important if you can build in all this cloud adoption framework beforehand.
Right. The structure must help enormously, particularly if the organisation is new to undertaking cloud implementations.
Yeah, absolutely right, it does.
Well, excellent, Nigel. I look forward to speaking with you further on other topics from an enterprise architect's point of view.
Okay, thanks for having me, Ray.